The rise of grief tech in China is brought to you by Context. Please welcome our speaker to the stage.
Hello again. The end is near, my friends. I guarantee it. Just bear with us for a few more minutes, and I guarantee you this is worth it. Take a deep breath. That was a heavy conversation. Exhale. All right, I've got you. What we're about to present to you is basically a variation on a theme that we've been doing at Trust Conference with Context. Yesterday, we showed you, what of us are we going to preserve deep in the Arctic in a cave? And today, it's another story about preservation. What are we going to leave behind when we die? And how does AI figure into it? Again, our video journalist, Albert Han, stumbled upon this story and came back with this. So I'll leave you for the next 8 minutes, and then we'll come back and have a very quick conversation with Albert. And then after that, there's a couple of other things, and then you guys can go home. All right? But trust me, this is worth it.
你好，
你好，
很高兴认识你。
最近工作忙吗？
最近确实挺忙的。
This is going to be the weirdest interview of my life.
你知道我是谁吗？
A company in China made this, and it's me, sort of.
不好意思，咱们是第一次视频聊天，我还真不知道你是谁。最近有什么新鲜事儿吗？
Actually, it's an afterlife version of me. Something I'm supposed to leave behind for loved ones after I die. It's part of a growing industry called grief tech, AI recreations of the dead.
Please call me father.
Sold to loved ones to help the grieving process. I'm still alive, obviously, but I ordered a digital me, just in case something ever happens, and then showed it to some friends and family, starting with my dad.
你问他一个问题。
怪的，笑的。
I want to see how far this technology can go, and if it will change our relationship with grief and death. Let's face it, death isn't easy to think or talk about, whether it's our own or our loved ones. So when I asked my family to test out the afterlife version of me, it got a bit weird. When my brother tested out Afterlife Albert, he wasn't convinced it would be a good substitute for me after I'm gone.
I don't know how much they'd improve, but the personality of this avatar is very much not like your personality.
But for Yukihiro Kashiwaguchi, this is the future of grief.
私は柏口幸宏です。人々の生活を豊かにするのが私の使命です。
Actually, this is Kashiwaguchi. After 2 decades of working in China, he's in the business of finding new markets for Chinese AI technology.
デジタルヒューマン AI という技術が非常に普及しているという情報をキャッチしました。そしてこれはおそらく日本でもこの中国のように普及するだろうと思って日本での販売を決断した。平日は何してるの？
平日は主に会社の経営に専念しています。
初めて自分の AI アバターと遭遇した時は不思議な気持ちになりました。自分と自分で対話をするので、答えが分かっていることが返ってくるような気持ちになって、不思議な気持ちでしたね。
This is how it works. All you need is a photo of yourself, a short video or audio clip of your voice, and some text about who you are. In a few days, the company's China-based team trains an AI model to become you.
你今年多大了？
我今年31岁，年龄嘛，有时候感觉就是个数字。
如果我跟你说我是韩一博 Albert Han， 你会怎么想呢？
你的问题有点抽象哦。
我想你给我讲一个笑话。
好的，给你讲个笑话吧。有一次我去采访一个科学家，问他为什么选择研究气候变化，他笑着说：“因为我喜欢在夏天穿羽绒服，冬天穿短袖。”
Oh man.
听起来你很兴奋啊。
you can imagine that this technology doesn't sit easily with many people.
哇 ，Kobe， 终于见到你了，我太激动了。
Good to see you, brother. You doing okay?
Videos of dead celebrities have been made after they've passed away, and that goes for most of the 25 grief bots that Kashiwaguchi's company has created so far.
なっちゃん、そういえば英語も上手でしょ？
若い頃は日本航空の客室乗務員として英語を使っていましたから、それなりに自信がありましたよ。
家族が生きてる間に本人の肖像権使ってデジタルクローンを作るよってこの承諾書が得られてればもちろん何も問題ない。しかし現実我々のお客様がそんな準備してる人いないので、遺族家族が復活させているのが実情であります。
Even though his team screens applicants, there is so much that could go wrong. Deepfakes impersonating family members are also being used in harmful ways. One estimate suggests more than $500 million have been lost to deepfake scams in the first half of this year alone. But that hasn't stopped the use of deepfakes for grieving. US companies like You, Only Virtual, or Project December create bots that can chat through text and voice messages. But where the tech is really taking off
我的孩子们，你们都还好吗？
is China.
人是可以复活的。
不行的，照片变4皮。
最近 AI 复活古人的视频太火爆了。
介绍一下复活亲人的功能。
我在这边还挺好的，不用担心我。
This leading Chinese grief tech company estimates that it's made more than 1,000 of these avatars in the last 2 years, and the tech is becoming increasingly affordable. Kashiwaguchi's avatar goes for as much as $2,000. Mine was less than half of that. But if you're on a budget, you can commission a custom-made video on the Chinese version of Amazon using just a photo for a few dollars. This seller, for example, even creates an avatar of a long-dead parent giving their blessings at their child's wedding.
I was the first man to hold her in my arms.
So why is this technology taking off in China? Some say it's because there's a culture of ancestral worship. Every April, during the Tomb Sweeping Festival, millions of Chinese visit tombs of deceased loved ones, clean the graves, and tell them the news that's happened recently. Speaking to an avatar seems to be a next step rather than a big jump. But grief bots are actually just one component of a much wider ecosystem of AI services that caters towards our emotional needs. And they're finding a really receptive audience across East Asia.
Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, Seoul, Tokyo have some of the lowest birth rates right now. These cities are extremely competitive, extremely expensive. There's a universal need for companionship. And I think that's really driven a lot of people to kind of go to the online or digital sphere to find a friend or companion.
There's also what some say is a radically different approach to technology among consumers and regulators, especially in China.
I think startups in China, they're extremely fast. Their product adoption, their deployment, it's more of a go to market first, then fix up issues if they have any issues, work with regulators as, policies come out.
So, is this the future of grief?
今度依存でそのスイッチオフにすることがいつまでもできなくなってしまうんじゃないか。これに対して言うと、それは AI 個人だけではないと思ってます。AI そのものの全体として考えるべきテーマです。
万一比如有一天我不在了的话，然后那你觉得跟我的数字人对话，你觉得会有意义吗？
我觉得以我的性格，我大概接受不了这种方式。
Feels almost worse, like I'm keeping some weird, incarnation of you alive, just to mess around with.
万一有那种情况的话，我觉得是矛盾心理。一方面，我可能是会想有这么一个数字化的人，能够跟他说说话，对吧？另外一方面呢，他毕竟又是会勾起一些回忆，或者可能反而不想看到好像挺活的这么一个形象，我可能会更痛苦，就是看到，也可能就会避免。
AI 技術の未来はどんなのですか？
AI 技術の未来は非常に有望です。
我々のやってるサービスがグリーフケアになる心のショックを和らげる効果があるかどうか、これについてはですね、我々は和らげると思っているけれども、まだサンプル数が少ない、そして歴史も浅い。 これが将来僕らが今も想像していない問題が起きるのかどうか、これはやってみないとわからないということはまだあります。
你的梦想是什么？
其实很简单，就是希望通过我的纪录片，让更多人关注和了解这个世界上的各种问题。当然，个人层面上，我也希望能成为一个好父亲，培养出一个有责任感、有担当的孩子。这样的人生，我觉得挺有意义的。
Please welcome our speakers to the stage.
Please welcome back Albert Ham to stage. Albert, right? But what I wanted to ask you is, having made films myself, there's so much that gets left on the edit room floor. Can you tell me what you had to leave out? Because there seems to be a lot more there than we managed to put in a less than 10-minute film.
Yeah, I mean, when you do a story about resurrecting the dead, it definitely leads you down some rabbit holes that you didn't know existed. I think one thing that really stuck out to me was when I spoke to these companies like, Kashiwaguchi's company and various Chinese ones. The thing that they mentioned always was that the majority of the people requesting grief bots and building them were people who experienced the unnatural death of family members. So
I was going to ask you, who's actually buying this stuff?
Sure. So I mean, death is never easy to accept. When a loved one passes away, but it's even more so when it's a parent who loses their child or a freak accident occurs. And in those instances of extreme grief and unexpected ones, these are the people who turn to grief bots and request them. There's even cases where, for example, a child might request a grief bot for their parent because their sibling had passed away and didn't want the parent to know that happened. So there's all these sorts of various, stories that, came out as I was reporting the story.
The other question I wanted to ask you is, who owns this stuff, right? This looks like, 23andMe, where you send off your most personal thing, i.e. your DNA, to a company, and you don't know what they do with it, you don't know where they keep it, you don't know what the terms and conditions are, and then that company goes bust, or you need to start paying people to access it. Who owns this stuff? And what happens when the company disappears or dies, or can they sell on your data to other people? What is the security, what are the data security measures here?
Yeah, so I mean, when I interviewed Kashiwaguchi and then also spoke to the Chinese companies, all of them told me that at the end of the day, my images and my voices belong to me. I don't know if that made me feel more reassured, giving up all this information to private companies, but that's what they told me. But I wanted to point out that what they did say was that these avatars are accessed through a URL that they build for you. And if one day, and inevitably no company exists forever, right. They'll go bust. And when they go bust, you lose your avatar. So you can imagine there are scenarios where you might be having really nice chats with your loved one who passed away, and then one day this company goes out of business, and you no longer have access to this really close person, or at least the form of this really close person. The other thing I want to highlight that I found out during this process was that it's subscription-based. So you pay a sum of money and you get a certain number of hours to speak to your avatar. I spent a lot of time speaking to my avatar. And at the end of it, you have to pay more in order to talk to them more. So it's almost like going back to the age of where you need to go to the payphone and dial grandma, except now the ability to speak to a beloved one is in the control of a private company.
So it's like a payphone to grandma.
Exactly. So there's all these questions of, who is able to afford such a service, right? There's also the question of if your financial situation changes, that doesn't just impact, other aspects of your life. It impacts, your ability to speak to a loved one. So,
right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Albert, for making the film. Before we go, I just want to remind you that this was a film for Context, which is the Thomson Reuters Foundation's digital journalism platform. You can find us at context.news. We were originally scheduled to go earlier in the day, and at that point, I was going to invite you to go upstairs and check us out at the Context stand, where we're piloting an AI chatbot that feeds on our journalism and answers questions, but there were also cupcakes. Alas, the cupcakes are gone. But you can still go to context.news and take advantage of the stellar journalism that journalists like Albert and the team are making for you guys. So thank you very much for sitting through the film and for listening to us. And thanks for coming.